So I'm Kayla Holroyd. I am the Senior Marketing Manager for Little Lion Entertainment. We run live entertainment, immersive theatre, playable theatre shows, most notably the Crystal Maze live experience. I've also had a lot of experience with the entertainment industry and the leisure industry. I did work for the Merlin attractions in London, so the London Dungeon and the London Eye, etc., and working with family brands in that way. So target audiences for Little Lion is very broad. So we run things like the Crystal Maze live experience. We're also opening a new attraction this year. So we are quite broad in terms of audiences. So we say 8 to 80. If we take Crystal Maze as a bit of a solid example, then we're talking sort of 18 to 34, young adults, people that are looking for a bit of leisure time. When talking to this kind of audience, so if we talk specifically about attractions and tourism, you can broadly put people into kind of buckets of what is it that they're doing, what is it that they're looking for. So it's not necessarily all about age for us. It's actually what are they doing, what are they wanting to do. So if you take day trippers, for example, if you're going for a day trip, you're likely to have really planned that day in advance. You only have a finite amount of time to do that leisure activity or whatever it is that you're going to do. So really, we're going to be wanting to target people within the planning phase of that trip. So for that, where do you go to plan? What do you do? So is it things that you've seen on social media? Most likely, yes. So if we bring age back into it, social media is going to be a really important channel. Also, social media, it's the social aspect of family and friends and emails and all of that kind of stuff. So for us, we find that customer relationship management is really important, and talking to people on those kind of branded channels to really kind of win hearts and minds to start with, so that people will then consider us for a trip when they're planning their day out. I mean, end of the day, it is going to be ticket sales for us. So it is going to be how many people we get through the door, how many people come and enjoy our experience. But then secondary, sort of secondary to that, I would say actually on a par with that is their experience and their engagement with the brand overall. So let's take TripAdvisor as an example. It's not necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily go there first in terms of, okay, we're really going to target people on that. That's not what we do, but we do find TripAdvisor and Google reviews and all review sites really, really important, because we get 5-star reviews. We've got certificate of excellence, all of that kind of stuff, which we will then bring back into our communications to people to go, look how great we are, look how amazing people, the amazing times that people are having. So for us, it really is about that brand engagement and people loving what we do and loving who we are as a brand. And the reason that we measure that both is because if you've got a great product, people are going to want to come. And if you can communicate how good that product is through what we do, but through also, the advocacy piece. So advocacy is so important. We know from our own consumer research that about 32% of people have heard of us through social media. About 34 have heard of us through a friend and family. So we know that we need to speak to, we need to generate those kind of relationships with people and with the guests, because they're going to do part of the job for you. Obviously we do an amazing job with all the marketing and the outreach and prospecting and stuff, but ultimately it's about making people happy, which is what we're doing, which is what we want to do. So yeah, when it comes to research, we have a few kind of prongs of attack. So we will talk to our existing customer base. We will find out what it is that they liked about us, what it is that drew them to us, all of that kind of stuff, and really listening to our guests and what they want. Because as I said before about just making sure the product works, making sure that what we're doing works for people is hugely important. So absolutely, we'll do surveys, we will send that out to existing database, but also things like, so for that, I'm talking more Crystal Maze, but then if we talk more Little Lions or the parent company, when we're developing new products, obviously we've got great experience of what we do, and we create these, really fun, engaging experiences where people can escape and all of this kind of stuff, and we're hugely creative. But also you do need to be led by research to know, okay, are we going down a route that's slightly subjective? Do we just think this is great? And so we do a bit of the creative research and a bit of product research when developing the new products, or when developing new creative for existing brands, just to make sure that it's not completely subjective, just get outside eyes on it. And then also things like past to purchase research. So as much as obviously advocacy is really important for us as well, we need to be able to do the awareness piece. We are quite well known, we've got a great IP, and we work with great IPs that are well known, but we do also have an awareness piece to do to get across, what is it, what are these products? And I think you'll find that in a lot of leisure industry and things. Let's go back to the dungeon as an example. The dungeon, a lot of people know of the dungeon, but they don't really know what it is. So it's getting those messages across, and it's finding the best ways of doing that. So if you go back to the audience, go back to, okay, let's find out where they're hanging out, what they're using, what they're kind of doing to plan said trip. You get a piece of work that we call the path to purchase work, that we commissioned a lot of research and lots of different branches of, okay, what's the audience doing here? How do they engage with this on this part of the trip? And then you find out the right platforms to be speaking to people. And that is so powerful, especially when you've got smaller budgets. If you're a smaller attraction, if you've had a hard year, as I'm sure everyone has this year, you need to make every penny count. So research is hugely important in making sure that that works, and that you are speaking to people in the right way, and every penny is going into something that is going to make a difference. One of the things I found really, really useful recently is the Visit Britain COVID sentiment report. So they've been doing a brand tracker, or not a brand tracker, a COVID sentiment tracker since I think it was May last year. Every week they've been going out to people and asking them, how are they feeling? When are they thinking of planning a trip? All of this. And I found it so useful in the past few months. When we reopened after the first lockdown, I relied heavily on that. I'm using it now in terms of our future planning for the next 3, 6, however many months. So that's a great resource. And we've also worked with a company called RDSI, who do a Mood of the Nation report as well, which has been invaluable. I would say one of the things, and there is no silver bullet, right? There's no one thing that's going to go, this is going to be it, this is the core nugget. But one thing I would say is just don't be tone deaf. If brands need to behave a certain way with the younger audiences, youth audiences, yes, absolutely. I think it's about making sure that you're listening to what's important to people and to youth audiences. We can talk quite broadly about generations, so what's important to them. Obviously, we've seen a big trend in morality and wanting to do good, and being really caring for what's going on and caring for people around them. So what does that translate to? So if you think about a leisure experience, how does that translate? So what we're not going to do, we're not going to preach to people. We would never touch upon something so important that doesn't fit with us. So it's about being authentic, right? So nothing drives me more mad than when I see a brand who will put some message out there that absolutely you're just looking at that going, why? That's not you. That's nothing. that's not a conversation that you need to be involved in. Everyone needs to do their bit, but why are you getting yourself involved in a conversation that has nothing to do with you, right? So it's like, I won't use any names because, let's not go into that territory, but it's like a fast food brand, right? Okay, so where does a fast food brand need to sit? So a fast food brand, if it wants to sit within this kind of messaging, then yes, it can talk about recycling. Yes, it can talk about what it's actually going to do about its carbon footprint. Great. Maybe where it shouldn't be sitting is trying to talk about other big matters. Why would it ever talk about a presidential debate or anything like that? So it's about making sure that you're adding to the conversation authentically, but not shoehorning yourself into a conversation that isn't relevant to you. We found, especially if you talk about the leisure industry, that experiences and going and doing something is really important, and making memories rather than having things. So when you think about them, when you think about your audience, so how would you talk to them? It wouldn't be about, yeah, look at all these amazing, you look so good. It's not necessarily about that. It's not speaking to any narcissism or anything like that, because that's not what a youth brand should be about. That's not what youth culture really is about. It's more about betterment, and look at these amazing things that I've done, and look how fun this is, and look where I've gone here, and all of that kind of stuff. So making sure that you can speak to that, and also give people their own content so they can go out with that as well and show the world what amazing experiences they're having. Yeah, so looking forward into 2021, sort of generally, I think quite obviously we're going to see a bit of people want freedom, right? They want to get back out into the world when we can. So people will want to, they want to have these real experiences, but they'll also want to show the world that they're having these real experiences. So as ever, the rise of digital media, the rise of social media will continue to be huge. I think it's something interesting in the world of digital media. I was reading about recently the rise of AI, which I think is really interesting, and that's something that I'm definitely going to look into some more. I think the robot's going to take over at some point. So that's something that I'm definitely going to look into. But I also think there's going to be a bit of a cherry picking of convenience. I've heard people have conversations about, okay, when this is over, and it will be eventually, but when it's over, what do you like? What you actually going to keep? People have had a lot of time to reflect and, think about what's important to them, and think about how they have that balance of what they need to do, what they have to do, and what they want to do. And that, so I think there'll be a cherry picking of convenience as well. I think people have had different ways of working and living, so people will cherry pick the bits that they've enjoyed. There'll also obviously be, as much as it's lovely to see everyone's faces all the time, I think there's going to be a bit of a video call fatigue backlash. I think everyone's either just going to want to see each other in person, or I'm just not going to see you for a bit. Sorry, I love you all, but let's try and do something in the pub instead, or that kind of stuff. But I do also think there will be a huge rise in the importance of brand values, and that I think people will still, it's becoming more important. You can see that in youth audiences, but it will continue to be more and more important as you see millennials grow up more, as you see Gen Z grow up more, and then you get your, I don't even know what the other generation's called after Gen Z. Well, I'll have to find it out. I don't think they're buying things yet, so I think that's why people aren't giving them a name. But I think you will see, as these younger adults grow up and become the consumers, their values will come across. So brand values will become really important too. So you'll see that from 2021 and beyond. And then other than that, I think content marketing. So you've got your strands of marketing, but content marketing will continue to rise and be more important. I think people want to feel like they're having a personal experience and a personal conversation with a brand, and content is a good way of doing that and doing that authentically. We know, it's, what is it, February? We know that probably for the first half of this year, we will still have restrictions. We will still have, various different ways of working. So I think it's really sensible to still be doing virtual things, to still be using that technology, but also be mindful that people won't want to do, as soon as they can get away from it, they will, and they will want to move away from it. However, let's think future, let's think, a couple of years time. We don't know what's going to happen. So actually, I think the key is flexibility. So being really flexible in what you do, how you speak to people, what channels you use, even to a certain extent your product, but not so much, because you don't want to tip too far in the other way, in the other direction, where you then don't become true to who you are and what you do and what you deliver. But having that baseline of, okay, with the Crystal Maze live experience, we bring you a really fun, nostalgic, live thing to do. However, if we can't bring that to you right now, we will do what we can to bring it to you in a virtual form. So that's the kind of thing that we've been doing this year. But really what we're about is we're about a fun experience with live actors, with that interaction with your friends, with that team experience. So at the core of us, we continue to do that and make sure that we bring the very best version of that to you in whatever format.